To you, I am, yes.
Are you gonna probe us?
Why does everyone always assume that? What am I doing? Am I harvesting farts? How much can I learn from an ass?
What?
October 30th, 1938. Millions of people turned their radios on to listen to the current broadcast. The broadcast in question was presented by legendary filmmaker Orson Welles, who was narrating an oral adaptation of H.G. Wells's novel The War of the Worlds. The War of the Worlds is a novel published in 1898, depicting an invasion of Martians in an imperial war of conquest of Earth. The combination of both Wells's work was so convincing that it created a panic, in which some listeners genuinely believed that it was a news broadcast of an actual invasion. Now, before you mock the people of the early 20th century for being idiots, keep in mind that we have TikTok today, so... But more importantly, this was presented as a breaking news segment on the radio, with barely any advertisements. I guess they could have advertised shotguns, water filters, and Alex Jones Mail Force Plus supplements to help survive the invasion, but they did not. Granted, contrary to mass hysteria, most people were confused by the story rather than in a state of panic. No need to shit your pants in fear, as no aliens are coming to anally probe you. Yeah, for some reason, a lot of alien abduction stories revolve around ultra-advanced butt plugs. From a brief look at these stories about the medical procedures, the denizens of these alien planets have some of the best proctologists in the galaxy. These are some pretty kinky aliens, but I do question the intelligence of a species which places most of their innovation towards butt plug technology. We are the ass-play masters of the universe. I think we can come up with some better ideas regarding extraterrestrial life that don't involve perverted little green men. You know who did have a better idea about extraterrestrial life? The ancients. Various mythologies involve powerful deities who descended from the cosmos, such as the Dakota Native Americans, whose oral tradition refers to the Star People, whose souls descended from the Big Dipper, or otherwise known as Ursa Major. Another example is the quasi-biblical book of Enoch from the Jewish canon, which involves giants descending down to Earth to mate with women, to produce alien-human hybrids called the Nephilim. Unlike our modern aliens, at least these giants focused on the right hole for reproduction. In the Hindu epic, the Ramayana, flying spacecraft called Vimanas, and I'm almost certainly mispronouncing that word, appear resembling the towers atop some Hindu temples. If I ever design alien spaceships, they will look like floating mechanical penthouses of 21st century glass and steel condo towers. These stories were told and or written by cultures before the advent of the scientific method. While it's easy to pass off these stories as stupid superstition, it is worth pointing out that science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke stated that, quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, hence why we call technology so advanced as Clark Tech, because it seems as though it's supernatural. But you know what is stupid superstition? The ancient astronaut theory, which came to prominence through the book Chariots of the Gods, further popularized by the History Channel show Ancient Aliens, which, while not producing much in terms of academic rigor, did produce some pretty dank memes during the 2010s. The story states that humans were too stupid to come up with the idea and the ability to construct pyramids, monuments, and temples, especially temples with Kama Sutra carved into them. Aliens were just too puritanical for that, never mind the butt plugs. The grateful humans misconstrued these aliens as being gods. Apparently, the aliens which visited Egypt came in the form of humans with cat heads, further proof that cats are the creators of the universe. Funny enough, the ancient astronaut theory manages to piss off both religious people and scientists. The ancient astronaut framework does flip the alien invasion theories we're used to on their heads, presenting an optimistic story of aliens helping humans with advanced technology, far from the doom and gloom we have been talking about as of today and really for several decades given War of the Worlds. Some argue that contact with aliens, whether they be friendly aliens like ET or destructive ones like Marv the Martian, would result in world religions declining, as many of them are anthropocentric or at the very least geocentric. And while this would not end human civilization, it could end a significant facet of our civilization.
He's from another world.
There's only one world, our world, the world that our God the Father created.
Hey, if it makes you feel any better, my existence only disproves traditional notions of the Abrahamic Judeo-Christian God, as well as all one-world theologies. That's all I meant.
Granted, I doubt this would happen, as religious in practice is much more relative and flexible than religious dogma. Even the Quran in Surah 42:29 states, "And among his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the living creatures, that he has scattered through them." Another surah of the Quran states that meteors are projectiles fired at devils. I guess you could think of them as jihadist space lasers destroying UFOs. During the modern age, UFO religions have emerged in various forms, from the self-deleting Heaven's Gate cult to the less depressing Raelians, who claim that humans were created by an alien colonizer called Elohim. The Raelians today are most well known for their interest in cloning and the topless women's rights movement. Apparently, Elohim is a boobs man. As you can tell, many of these modern religions are not necessarily supernatural, as aliens, being part of the natural world, have replaced the supernatural gods. Granted, that still doesn't mean that they're scientific. Speaking of science and fiction, let's move on to science fiction, specifically the aforementioned War of the Worlds. In this story, one which would live on to inspire an entire genre, the humans in question can't fight the aliens head-on, but rather have to resort to guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare is used when there's a massive asymmetry of technological, economic, and institutional power between two fighting forces. This has been seen in the real world with conflicts like the American War for Independence or the Algerian War for Independence. However, according to the War of the Worlds story, the alien invaders are not defeated by conventional military operations or unconventional guerrilla tactics, but rather by bacteria. Not by big guns, but by tiny little microbes. Contamination has always been a fear when it comes to space travel. When Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins had to greet President Nixon in quarantine, they had to do so in a pod, which protected them and the potential pathogens that they were holding from the rest of the world, out of the fear that perhaps President Nixon or someone else would have contracted some sort of lunar pathogen. This is reminiscent of a time in human history that came closest to a science fiction story: the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs and the Incas, which saw the native populations dwindle in part due to microbes which spread smallpox alongside steel and gunpowder. Unlike the War of the Worlds, the bacteria are on the side of the invaders, albeit not on purpose. The reason why smallpox wiped out much of the Americas, followed by Oceania and Australia, is that these populations didn't have immunity from these illnesses, as they were zoonotic and came from animals of the old world that people had domesticated. Perhaps the invading aliens will have purple space goats, which spread a form of bacteria or virus of which humans lack immunity to, but the aliens do have immunity to. While a human extinction scenario from alien microbes is more likely than a floating death dish with laser beams, it's still unlikely even if we come into contact with microscopic life in our solar system, or on celestial bodies like Mars or Europa. For one, pathogens tend to target species which are closely related. While humans can contract diseases such as smallpox from cattle and Ebola from bats, these are all mammals. We can also contract salmonella from birds and reptiles, but generally speaking, the less related the current host of the pathogen is, the less likely we are to get infected. For example, the Dutch elm disease is extremely deadly to elm trees, but if you're not an elm tree, which I'm assuming applies to 100% of my audience, then there is nothing to fear from this fungus as far as your health is concerned, albeit the tree in your backyard might be genuinely terrified by it. The primary fear regarding an extinction tier threat of astropathogens would not be from the spacesuits of intelligent aliens, but rather from the back contamination when manned spacecraft visits bodies with microbes and comes back to Earth. Perhaps Earthlings will be wiped out as they don't have the immunity to the pathogen and our civilization will collapse, similar to the Aztecs and Incas. Granted, as I stated before, this is very unlikely as pathogens would usually evolve to target specific life forms of their own world that they would have already been in contact with. An alien microbe which has an enzyme and proteins capable of infecting an alien jellyfish, marine centipede creature on the moon Europa would probably not have the same biology capable of infecting humans. If we do indeed encounter alien microbes, they would be extremophiles, used to extreme heat, cold, pHs, humidity, etc. The terrestrial extremophile microbes we see on Earth are usually not dangerous, as they have adapted to extreme conditions vastly different than our own bodies. As funny as it sounds, these extremophiles would probably die in our more mild conditions, kind of like how an emperor penguin loves the extreme cold of Antarctica but can't handle the balmy weather of a beach in California. Nonetheless, quarantine measures are still a smart option in the case of back contamination, given that any microbes we encounter in the near future would probably be tough as nails. Now let's move on to the more exciting but less likely scenario of an alien conquest, perhaps the most cliché explanation of human extinction by the hands of aliens of all. Warfare, in some form, is the default state in human history, and peace is the aberration. Humans in primitive times engaged in raids, and with more advanced forms of technology and organization, these humans would engage in the creation of empires. As time moved on, empires got bigger, starting off with the Akkadian Empire all the way to the British Empire. When we talk about alien invasions, we are projecting our human fears onto creatures that will be very different than us. We really have no idea what the culture, values, and moral universes of these aliens will be. And if they have one at all, maybe they have multiple, because these aliens will, chances are, be incredibly diverse. There are reasons why we should take this threat seriously though. Alien life, in its organic form, will be the product of evolution and ecology. Evolution and ecology can oftentimes be brutal, as you have organisms which have to survive in a world of limited resources, which oftentimes leads to aggression, predation, and survival of the fittest. Our wars and empires are a product of a planet ruled not by international law, but rather by the law of the jungle. Perhaps space will be governed not by the United Federation of Planets, with the Klingon being the future version of North Korea, but rather by an interplanetary law of the jungle, as stated before. This sort of realpolitik view can be seen in Robert A. Heinlein's Starship Troopers, as humanity goes to war with an insectoid alien species. Granted, if a species would advance enough to produce interstellar travel, then maybe it would have to tone down its worst Darwinian instincts through either institutions or genetic engineering. Perhaps the alien species who don't tame their natural demons will be wiped out by themselves, producing a filter in which more enlightened species survive and spread throughout the galaxy, whereas the less enlightened ones just nuke themselves. Here on Earth, we have seen that while all empires are violent, there are some that tend to be more benign than others and thereby more stable. Take the Persian Empire's success over the Babylonians, or how the British and Americans managed to overcome the Axis. Maybe this alien empire invades us to keep the peace, replacing the anarchic Earth's geopolitics of law of the jungle into an ironclad international legal system, this time in the form of a powerful alien force. This can be seen in the 1951 classic movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, in which an alien and its robot come to Earth at the height of the Cold War to warn humanity against the threat of nuclear war and environmental catastrophe. In this case, aliens prevent humans from causing their own extinction. Granted, the more benign empires are still empires. A stern warning doesn't mean shit. Showing humans your big futuristic weapons and telling them to keep the peace lest you use those big fancy weapons does end up in people, let's just say, stabbing each other and shooting each other less often. Keep in mind that many of these early science fiction stories emerged during the space age of the 1950s to the 1970s, at a time when all of this was novel and the pace of technological change in this field was rapid. The Cold War also played a role. In the 1985 Geneva Convention, President Ronald Reagan and the Soviet leader Gorbachev did briefly discuss having the two enemies cooperate in the case of an alien invasion. Other sci-fi scenarios involve alien contact in which humans are advanced, in fact, the advanced bad guys, such as in Avatar, but this scenario would not result in extinction and is more about post-colonial theory and the oppressor versus oppressed narratives woven into a space setting. In this setting, human extinction really isn't a factor. If anything, it might be us causing other aliens to become extinct, lest they put up a fight and have some weird connection with these flying things. All of the scenarios that I've laid out are under the assumption that contact with aliens is really likely to begin with. In a massive universe, we'd expect some contact with aliens by now, yet we haven't come into contact with them. Why is that? Well, I don't know, but a man by the name of Frank Drake tried to figure it out. The Drake equation is a probability formula estimating the number of communicative extraterrestrial civilizations in our galaxy by multiplying several factors: the rate of star formation, the fraction of stars with planets, the number of habitable planets per solar system, the fraction of which these planets have life that arises in them, the fraction of that life which evolves into intelligent life forms, and the likelihood that these intelligent life forms would be able to produce the technology required for interstellar travel. It's a framework for discussion, not a precise calculation, as most variables, especially the latter ones, are largely unknown in their quantities, leading to vastly different estimates, from some potentially stating that there are millions of these civilizations to none. Yeah, that's quite a bit of a margin for error. Not something I bet on Polymarket or FanDuel. While the Drake equation took a quantitative approach to understanding how lonely we are, Enrico Fermi took a more qualitative approach. The Fermi paradox highlights the contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial life existing due to the universe's vastness and age, and the complete lack of evidence or contact with alien civilizations, famously summarized in his question, "Where is everybody?" While billions of stars and potentially tons of habitable planets exist, we still haven't had any greeting cards yet. No signs of intelligent life. And given the track record of our planet, that's quite depressing. One proposed solution, which comes in a multitude of forms as to why there could be potentially so much life arising in the universe, yet we haven't made contact, is that life tends to destroy itself. Funny enough, my other videos in this series on human extinction are all about great filters. Potential extinction events like supervolcanoes, meteorite impacts, nuclear war, climate change, pathogens, and AI revolutions. Some of these are products of natural forces that we can't control, others are due to our own folly. But let's just say that someone out there does make it past all of these filters. So how do we contact this civilization? Well, contact it before they either build us some cool temples and or exterminate us. Well, that's where SETI comes in. SETI stands for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It refers to various numbers of projects using radio telescopes and other methods to detect signals of intelligent life beyond Earth, looking for non-random radio or optical transmissions, which could be evidence of other civilizations. Granted, this is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. like a really gigantic haystack. Like really gigantic. Now, if we were to make contact, would these aliens even be using primitive radio technology anyway? The whole ordeal was lampooned in an episode of Futurama.
Oh, how convenient. A theory about God that doesn't require looking through a telescope. Get back to work.
In 1974, an observatory in Puerto Rico sent an interstellar radio transmission aimed at the globular cluster M13, with binary representation of the numbers 1 to 10, DNA, a stickman, and the solar system, along with a depiction of the telescope itself. It will take a long time for the message to reach the M13 cluster, and if someone is on the other side, it will take them a long time for them to message us back. Remember that whenever someone bothers you for texting replies late. In 1977, the Voyager Golden Record was sent into space, along the spacecraft which shares its name. It includes sounds of Earth, such as greetings in various languages, animal noises, the Beatles, etc. I find it amusing that we sent a message to hopefully land in the hands, claws, or tentacles of an alien race through a device called a vinyl record, which is already a few decades outdated. If it happened today, we would perhaps give the aliens an access code to a cloud server. To be fair, these gestures are really more romantic than functional, more like a message in the bottle thrown into the sea. While SETI plays a passive role simply looking for signals, another organization has emerged by the name of METI, which stands for Messaging to Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This organization actively sends powerful signals into space to contact aliens. This has proven to be very controversial and has led to numerous ethical debates about the potential risks of revealing Earth's location to potentially hostile aliens, with figures like Stephen Hawking warning against it. This leads us to the dark forest hypothesis, which is the idea that extraterrestrial civilizations may exist in abundance across the universe, but are silent and by and large try to hide, not revealing themselves to other civilizations as they fear the destruction that may come about by making contact with what is potentially a more technologically advanced and hostile group of organisms. Under this logic, perhaps humans should keep quiet as well. This relates to game theory. Let's say that aliens make contact with us. Sure, they can be friends with us and enlighten us with new ways of seeing the universe and advanced technology. Or they could probe us with rectum experiments before euthanizing us. If we don't make contact, we will chug along and advance at our own pace. Under this perspective, it might be wiser to not make contact since the potential negatives could be more severe than the positives. Unless, of course, these aliens could give us the technology or ability to prevent other extinction events, such as protect us from supervolcanoes or gamma ray bursts. So, who knows? Another hypothesis which combines alien invasion theories with AI fears is the Berserker hypothesis. This suggests that the Fermi paradox is explained by self-replicating, planet-sterilizing robots called Berserkers. These Berserkers, named after a quasi-Viking fighting force, would have been released by an ancient, probably extinct civilization that systematically had destroyed itself using the advanced AI. Perhaps this would have resulted in the destruction of all life forms on the planet that were organic. This originates from a science fiction novel rooted in John von Neumann's self-replication concept. These probes act as unstoppable galactic exterminators. This may explain the lack of observable extraterrestrial life. The scenario combines Darwinistic survival of the fittest, but one applied to non-organic AI or the very least robotic forms. Perhaps this contact and extinction event is more likely given that machines designed to withstand the vastness of space would be more likely to survive the journey to Earth and, well, destroy us in the aftermath. Another explanation involves apathy. Theoretical physicist Michio Kaku argues that aliens might not want to visit Earth to begin with, as we're too primitive to bother with. Granted, humans, in spite of their frequent stupidity, are still much smarter than otters, salamanders, and oak trees, yet there are people who dedicate their careers to studying them. This leads us to the zoo hypothesis. The zoo hypothesis suggests that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations exist but intentionally avoid contact with Earth, observing humanity like animals in a cosmic zoo or nature preserve, to allow for their own natural evolution. This was parodied in an episode of South Park where Planet Earth is a reality TV show for aliens to watch and laugh at. A more likely scenario of human extinction related to both animals and apathy is that advanced alien civilizations might want to build infrastructure near or on Earth. Perhaps it's an interstellar highway leading to an intergalactic megamall. The aliens might not wish us harm, but they could destroy our habitat the same way that we don't take much issue with pouring asphalt over a field with grass and insects. Granted, even us in the developed world do have endangered species protections in our zoning ordinances. Perhaps an advanced civilization would think twice. Plus, the universe is very big, so perhaps there's plenty of space to build over, which doesn't involve covering us in gamma-ray burst-proof cement. Overall, the more boring an explanation is, the more likely it is to be true. If something does wipe us out, it's far more likely to be a series of natural disasters or human warfare. No little green men apply. Given the vastness of the cosmos, if we were to make contact with intelligent life, it would not be centuries ahead of us, but perhaps thousands of years ahead of us, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us. Can we really even comprehend what they would be like at that point? Or maybe the universe is so vast that interstellar travel will not be possible to make contact either way. If that is the case, the most intelligent life forms we have to talk to are the orangutans. Thankfully, they don't have the technology to destroy us with space lasers.